They are not free to tell the truth to the American people. And obviously, when you have the kind of administration that we have today that can't be trusted, then we have to be able to blow the whistle and tell the American people the truth.
Now at that same hearing, you asked for the second time for a briefing on some of the war games that were taking place on 9/11. Now, you were really the first person to talk about that within government. It was brought up briefly in the 9/11 Commission hearings. What did you learn?
We learned that they lie. We know they lie, but we had the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, Richard Myers, there, who said that actually the war games improved the ability of the American defenses to respond to the attacks on September 11th. But now, of course, we know with the release of the FAA tapes that there was just mass confusion. And we also learned that there were several war games going on, so that now I believe that it wasn't one or two or three, but it was more like 4, 5, or 6 war games that were going on simultaneous on September 11th and coinciding with the actual attacks. Why would they say things that aren't true? Because they're so accustomed to being able to get away with saying things to the American people that aren't true. And they're also not accustomed to members of Congress actually challenging them. It's one thing to ask on the first iteration a question and get the answer, but it's another thing to be able to go 2 or 3 layers deep in their response. For example, we had, this was back when I was on the International Relations Committee, we had a gentleman come in, and one of the members of Congress asked a question about Afghanistan and the quote tunnels, the camps, the training camps that were going on over in Afghanistan. And the question was asked, is it true that that the Americans, the United States government, provided the funding for the establishment of those training camps? And the gentleman responded, yes, that, they were American-sponsored training camps, but that bin Laden had abused the privileges that were given because it was a noble cause of getting rid of ejecting the Soviets from Afghanistan. Well, then I asked if the gentle person who was posing the questions would yield so I could then follow on the same vein. My question was, is it not true that the United States government paid $300 million to the bin Laden family for the construction of the military camps? At that point, then the person who was testifying had no choice but to admit, yes, that the money had gone to the bin Laden family for the construction of those military training facilities in Afghanistan. However, he added that none of that money went to bin Laden himself. Of course, it was a joke.
So you actually held a 9/11 Citizens Commission. Tell me what you learned there and why you put it together.
Well, we put it together because it was about time somebody in Congress did. It was about time that somebody in Congress heard from the family members. And it's not just about hearing from them, but it's about critical analysis of what's done and critical questioning that will get us the answers that you and Loose Change are trying to provide to the American people. There we had family members, we had whistleblowers, we had academicians, we had scholars, we had government intelligence people, we had lawyers, we had international financial transactions experts, we had citizens in the audience, just average, ordinary people who were able to travel to Washington and go to the United States Congress and hear the truth about September 11th. The truth as has never been said or heard on Capitol Hill. It was all day, about 8 or 9 hours of testimony. And we heard from scholars like Peter Dale Scott, who talked about the relationship with the CIA, between the CIA and what we now call Al-Qaeda. And I have to remind you that I did pay attention when the foreign minister of Great Britain, Robin Cook, who is now dead, said that, described the Al-Qaeda as nothing more than the CIA's Rolodex. So we had Peter Dale Scott there. We also had an attorney by the name of Charles McMichaels, who talked about the police state. Now, ultimately, I think that's why the 911 Truth movement exists, because the American people have seen that this tragedy has been used by our government to redefine the character of our country, to take away the very freedoms that they say are the cause of why we were hit on September 11th. And without any real responses from the government as to exactly what happened. How is it that on 4 separate occasions on one day that $1 trillion military and intelligence infrastructure could fail? How could that happen? If for no other reason than respect for taxpayers' dollars, the Congress should have demanded an answer. The Congress didn't demand an answer and didn't get one. And in fact, quite frankly, Colin Powell, as our Secretary of State, promised to provide us a white paper on who exactly was responsible for carrying out the September 11th attacks. We never got the white paper, so we don't know who did it. And because this administration has lied so many times to the American people, then it's incumbent upon the American people to find the truth. So I admire the authors of Loose Change. I admire every individual who is organized in the 911 Truth movement. I admire the members of the 911 Truth movement because they are average, ordinary American citizens, at the end of the day, just like me, who ask important questions about the fundamental character of our country, about what it is our country is becoming, how it is that we are going to define ourselves and to our children and to the global community which we are charged to serve. We're not serving the global community. We're not serving our values, and we're certainly not serving our future. Well, what makes me really disappointed, and that's an understatement, is that Congress's role is oversight. And Congress, even today, you'll see members of Congress saying, well, we haven't implemented everything that the 911 Commission recommended. And the 911 commissioners have said that the administration obstructed them, lied to them. So how can you start with a document that you know is false and take that to the American people as a document